Bonjour. Nous avons eu une bonne rencontre. Le Premier ministre et moi on parlait des sujets, les enjeux où nous avons les choses en commun et aussi les enjeux où nous n'avons pas la même approche. So we talked about, the Prime Minister and I had a good meeting, covered a lot of ground, found some areas of common ground, which is what we have to do in this minority parliament. All of us as MPs have to find ways to work together. So areas of common ground, as I suggested in my letter to the Prime Minister and the other party leaders, the letter is on the Green Party website if you wanted to go back and refer to it, but it was a letter of October 24th that laid out critical areas of concern for Greens and where we thought we could find common ground with other parties. So let me cover the common ground areas first, because I think that would be the positive news. I was very pleased to hear from the Prime Minister that the legislation to bring in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples will be coming back to the House, that we want to get that through. Of course, as you'll remember, it was delayed in the Senate by Conservative senators. We think there's substantial common ground around pharmacare and the importance of bringing in the next phase that we should have had for many, many years of our public health program, which is to include pharmacare, and the importance of the Hoskins report. We also, I was very pleased that there's common ground on acting to stave off the loss of abortion services in New Brunswick. Clinic 554 is in danger of closing imminently. And I'm pleased that he also is concerned about that and wants to take steps within the Canada Health Act to ensure abortion access in New Brunswick. I'm not quite sure what he'll do with it in terms of the urgency of this particular clinic closing that provides services for abortion services and as well as health care services for the LGBTQ+ community. We also spoke of the need to bring in truth in advertising legislation as part of the political scene in Canada. We saw a very dirty election campaign, and our Elections Act could be reformed to include truth in advertising. He's interested in that as well. We also talked about, of course, about climate action. And I urged him to consider attending COP25 himself. COP25 opens in Madrid in early December. It's of course right now somewhat of a conflict with other pressing government business. I recognize that the government needs to pass supplemental estimates to keep the Government of Canada operating. We're opening with the election of the Speaker and the speech from the throne, both on December 5th. December 6th, of course, is a day when we wouldn't want to just be marching into regular business, because we're commemorating on every December 6th the shootings and protesting and commemorating the women who were killed and protesting violence against women. So that happens on the 6th. This is right in the middle of the Madrid summit. And the final week of the Madrid summit is the high-level portion. So in looking at that timeline, I'm hoping the Prime Minister might find a way to organize the business of the House such that he can attend in person and push for higher levels of ambition from other countries, which of course requires that Canada do more ourselves. Nous avons parlé des choses en commun, particulièrement l'assurance des médicaments, les questions de l'accès à l'avortement en New Brunswick. Aussi, je suis tellement heureuse que le Premier ministre a confirmé que ses intentions d'avoir le projet de loi pour la déclaration des Nations Unies sur les droits des peuples autochtones. So we had some areas of agreement and some areas of disagreement. No surprise there.
Can you clarify juste sur la COP25, pouvez-vous juste clarifier à quelle date vous voudriez qu'il y aille? Parce que vous dites le 5, le discours du trône, le 6, il y a politique.
C'est une question pour le processus dans la Chambre des communes, mais je pense que si c'est possible d'avoir les votes dans les premières journées de la deuxième semaine de COP25, particulièrement lundi ou mardi, et après, pour mercredi, jeudi ou vendredi, d'avoir le Premier ministre à COP25 avec un nouveau cible. C'est une façon de faire une grande différence, pas seulement ici au Canada, mais pour le monde entier. Nous avons eu le sommet de Nations Unies le 23 septembre. Et évidemment, notre Premier ministre n'était pas là à cause de les élections ici. Mais ce n'est pas trop tard. So while we missed the global summit on September 23rd at the United Nations, which had the goal of pushing countries to higher levels of ambition and different targets, we missed it because of the election. Now, I put forward a proposal which none of the other leaders, I don't put this on Prime Minister Trudeau alone, I asked Mr. Singh, Mr. Scheer, all of us together, couldn't we say Canada is here as a group? Anyway, the moment for that has passed. There was no political engagement from Canada at the UN summit. But with the negotiations in Madrid for COP25, it's not too late for the Prime Minister to go personally and to go and make a fairly important, very important statement that a fossil fuel producing country is committed, as he said in the election campaign, a new commitment from this government to be carbon neutral by 2050. But you can't be carbon neutral by 2050 if your target doesn't change for 2030, because you literally can't get there from here.
Madame la Chambre des communes, comment vous pouvez vraiment avoir du pouvoir quand il y a d'autres partis qui détiennent la balance du pouvoir?
Oui, c'est absolument vrai. C'est clair que nous n'avons pas la balance du pouvoir. Nous sommes trois. Mais nous sommes aussi un parti avec, nous sommes un parti honnête, nous sommes un parti avec notre intégrité, et aussi nous sommes le parti avec le seul parti qui comprend la science de changement climatique et la situation d'urgence climatique. Pour ça, notre pouvoir reste dans les rues, dans les manifestations, avec le mouvement social qui exigeait toujours que le gouvernement fasse plus. So I think our power as three Green MPs will come from our position of honesty and integrity, being really grounded in the science and in alliance with the social movements, in alliance with the 1 million Canadians who marched on September 27th. Don't stop marching.
But it doesn't sound like he did anything. It doesn't sound like your priorities is obviously fighting climate change, reducing emissions more. It doesn't sound like he said anything in that direction.
Well, no, I wouldn't. I don't want to be unfair. What the Prime Minister said is that these are all matters to be considered after November 20th, when he talks to whoever the new Environment Minister will be. It may be the same Environment Minister. There may be changes. I anticipate changes. But he certainly didn't say anything about who will be Environment Minister. Those conversations are still happening. He seemed to be open to what I was saying.
But what would you like him to do you want him to change his targets?
Absolutely.
Was he open to that?
He said it was something he'd be discussing with the new Environment Minister.
Just on UNDRIP, what was the commitment that you heard today?
The commitment to bring back the legislation. And I specifically asked him, yes, I specifically asked him if this was something I could share with the media because I hadn't heard it before. It's one of our top priorities, and I was very pleased that he's prepared to bring it back and get it passed.
Was it a missed opportunity in the last Parliament for the government not to make Romeo Saganash's bill a government bill to get it through? Like, do they hold any responsibility for the fact that it didn't pass in the last Parliament?
Well, they have both responsibility and credit. When Jody Wilson-Raybould was Minister of Justice was when the decision was made to support Romeo's bill. It would have died an early death at second reading had the Liberals not supported it. Could they have gotten it through? Absolutely. By making it a government bill, it could have gotten through where there was less time available for the Conservative senators to delay it. But, you know, with that second guessing what happened in the last Parliament, this was one of our top priorities. And really, once the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples is the law of the land in Canada, then we go through a process similar to what's just happened in British Columbia. How does it align with all of our laws? How do we make sure that we understand free, prior, and informed consent?
Sur la crise climatique, vous dites que vous voulez voir de nouvelles cibles, que c'est impératif pour atteindre un carbon neutral en 2050. Le fait que M. Trudeau, son gouvernement, veuille quand même aller de l'avant avec Trans Mountain, ça ne vous empêche pas d'appuyer toute autre mesure environnementale ou autre?
Je suis certaine que ce n'est pas possible de protéger notre climat et en même temps appuyer le oléoduc Trans Mountain, pas un seul autre oléoduc. C'est pas possible. C'est une question scientifique. C'est une question d'impossibilité. Mais quand même, si M. Trudeau pense qu'il peut poursuivre l'oléoduc, premièrement, faire une étude scientifique avec un nouveau cible. C'est possible ou non? Je pense que ce n'est pas possible. I do not believe it is possible to build any new pipelines and hold any position of responsibility that you've done what's required to ensure human civilization will survive through the lifetime of our children. It's a question of science, it's a question of physics, but if the Prime Minister wants to figure out we can take a new target and still build the pipeline, that implies that you're prepared to cut back greenhouse gases everywhere else in Canada, even more deeply than we have.
But my question is, est-ce que ça vous empêche d'appuyer toute mesure du gouvernement, d'appuyer le gouvernement Trudeau, le fait qu'il continue avec Trans Mountain, ou vous pourriez appuyer certaines choses malgré Trans Mountain?
Non, c'est pas, pour nous, comme Verts, c'est absolument critique. Notre position, c'est une ligne rouge, ligne verte, tellement claire. Nous n'avons pas la capacité, ce n'est pas possible d'imaginer que les Verts veulent donner appui pour la confiance de la Chambre des communes, pour un gouvernement qui poursuive l'augmentation.
Donc, vous les appuierez jamais?
Jamais.
Vous n'allez jamais appuyer un projet de loi ou un budget libéral? But that's my question.
No, but your question, if I thought you were asking about confidence votes. If you're asking about confidence votes, we could never vote confidence in a government that was pursuing pipelines and increasing greenhouse gases. We could support individual laws. I think we made that very clearly. We want to support a pharmacare law. We want to support UNDRIP. We will vote for liberal legislation.
But you will oppose any budget?
Absolutely, because unless there's a carbon target that holds to 1.5.
How about the speech of the throne?
We can't vote. That's a confidence vote. We can't vote confidence in a government that has a plan for disaster.
Vous allez voter contre?
Oui, absolument. Avec les cibles actuellement, notre cible, c'est une plan vers catastrophe climatique.
Mais ça envoie pas un mauvais message. En même temps, vous avez parlé de collaboration, vous avez parlé du désir de travailler là, tous les partis ensemble. Ça envoie pas un mauvais message de voter contre?
Non, c'est la même chose que dans la lettre d'octobre 24. Nous avons expliqué qu'on on doit travailler ensemble pour les enjeux où c'est possible d'imaginer le progrès. Mais quand même, c'est une question morale. Nous n'avons pas la capacité, nous ne sommes pas prêts à donner notre appui pour un seul gouvernement qui ne comprend pas l'urgence climatique. We are looking at a situation of a moral question, an imperative of our generation not to steal our children's future. I will not vote confidence in any government that is committed to continue to steal our children's future right in front of them. They're in the streets. They're striking from school. They're telling us you're stealing our future. You've got to stop. It's not about not being willing to work together. Where we can make progress on pharmacare, on UNDRIP, where we make progress to keep abortion access, any place where we can work together, we will. But you can't vote confidence in a government that has a plan for global destruction, which I'm afraid we do.
But you'll never be able to topple them because you're
I
three
know.
votes, right? You'll never be able to topple them.
But we will continue to press, and we do have the support of people across this country who put climate action first, some of whom mistakenly thought other parties cared as much about climate as we do. No, they don't. That's pretty clear from the other parties' response after meeting with Mr. Trudeau. We can't vote confidence in a government that has a target that's as low as this government's target and thinks we can build LNG Canada with new government subsidies. That's 100 million additional tons of greenhouse gases a year from the LNG Canada plant. Building the Trans Mountain Pipeline isn't about getting product to market. It's about expanding the oil sands over where they are now. You can't, Greens can never vote confidence in a government that doesn't understand that climate action is urgent, and it's not a few nice things that are being done that are unquestionably better than what would happen if the Conservatives weren't government.
What did he say when you told him all that?
Well, he said it would be discussed with his new Environment Minister when the time comes.
So every single confidence vote that has a mention of a liquid natural gas pipeline or
No,
a mention or
no.
any confidence vote at all this government?
Any confidence vote at all this government.
Okay. And just you had brought up
Without a change in our climate target and a real commitment to respecting the advice that came last year from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that we are running out of time to avoid self-accelerating, unstoppable global warming from which we will not survive.
But I just want to,
No problem, you can follow up. We're all trying to understand.
I think it was pretty clear, but I'm very happy.
But you also don't want, because you're saying no confidence vote without a new target
Yeah.
and recognizing science. But you also want them to give up Trans Mountain.
Well, you can't build. You
Just
can't.
say yes or no, please.
It's not also. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem you're having. That holding to 1.5 degrees Celsius is not possible with new pipelines, with LNG Canada, with fossil fuel expansion. We have to contract our greenhouse gas emissions rapidly, which means you can't have any new pipelines, and to spend $13 billion of public money on a pipeline makes no sense
But so
at all.
when you're saying no confidence vote without a new target,
Yes.
without understanding science,
Right.
we should also add without a new pipeline or with a new pipeline
Yeah.
or,
Yes.
or extending or LNG.
Absolument.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You proposed a green cabinet, right? Like
Right.
a climate cabinet.
Yes.
Was this discussed at all today in the meeting?
Yeah, I referred back to the letter that we'd said October 24th, but quite honestly, I've had no response from any of the other party leaders either, so I didn't raise it specifically in this meeting. I did say everything in this letter we stand by. We'd like to pursue everything in this letter. That was my reference to the climate cabinet, because I wanted, in the time we had, because I don't think it has been on his radar for the Prime Minister to attend COP25. He's aware of COP25, of course, the importance of it. He's aware of the way the parliamentary calendar conflicts with COP25, and they're grappling with it. I think that's fair to say.
Qui devrait être ministre de l'Environnement, à votre avis?
Je pense que c'est seulement la spéculation. Ce n'est pas.
Vous dites que vous avez
Ouais,
l'impression
c'est
que-
clair c'est clair que Mme McKenna ne veut pas rester comme ministre de l'Environnement, ça c'est clair. Elle m'a dit ça avant le dernier Parlement. Elle a dit que ce sera le moment juste avant Kotovici et le dernier COP. Elle m'a dit que sera mon dernier COP. Okay, so it's pretty clear, and she's been talking about other portfolios she wants more. It's an open secret. So I don't think it'll be Catherine McKenna. It might be. The Prime Minister makes his decisions. Stephen Guilbeault is the obvious thought, because what would induce Stephen Guilbeault to run for the Liberals when he opposes Trans Mountain, unless he was offered something significant. But again, it's just speculation. You never know.
How do you envision your role being different now that you're going to be parliamentary caucus leader versus the leader of the Greens?
The role in the House doesn't change at all, except for the fact that I have 2 colleagues and will be able to do 3 times as much work.
Have you reached out to Jody Wilson-Raybould about the leadership?
No, gosh, no. I don't think there's any chance that she'd be interested, and I wouldn't ask her. I think the next leader should be fully bilingual from the get-go.
How would you have Mr. Trudeau address some of the Western alienation sentiment and the Western premiers who are concerned that their economies will be in real trouble if Trans Mountain?
Very good point. I did suggest that we should do things that address Western alienation. I think it would be useful to add up all the federal subsidies that went to creating the oil sands in the first place, so that it's very clear to Albertans that this is not just a project of their own government or their own industry, but was massively subsidized by the federal taxpayer. We're in this together. In other words, we have a lot of toxic liabilities from abandoned and orphaned wells. We know from the Supreme Court of Canada case earlier this year, Redwater, that you can't just walk away from abandoned and orphaned oil wells. You're even in bankruptcy. You can't walk away. That's why we're seeing companies actually sort of close up in the middle of the night and disappear, because they don't want to clean up the toxic liabilities. These are on the books of the province of Alberta. One of the reasons Alberta, besides low tax rates and all the other things Alberta does to sabotage their own budgets, they have to carry these liabilities on the books. So I did suggest to the Prime Minister there might be a role for the federal government in the cleanup of toxic sites, which would have an immediate impact on helping the budget of the province of Alberta.
You mentioned, Andrea, was that one of your demands? Or
Yes, yes.
Okay,
It's a key demand. It was one of our key messages throughout the election campaign and in the letter I sent October 24th to the Prime Minister in our conversation today, and I was very pleased to have his confirmation that he's bringing back UNDRIP.
Did you guys discuss any other Indigenous issues?
Yes, actually, we raised the current situation on Vancouver Island. There's very little land that's held in federal hands for accommodating title negotiations and land claims and so on, particularly the Nanaimo Nation, First Nation. There's very little land around and getting into technical details, since 1884 there was something called the Esquimalt and Nanaimo Land Grant, which put a lot of land outside of, and it was never considered what this meant for Indigenous people, that this land was in a land grant to get BC to get into Confederation. So the proposal, and it's Paul Manley's proposal as the member for Nanaimo Ladysmith, was have the federal government get involved and buy up some of the forest company land so that you could create a conservation tenure operated, owned by Indigenous nations of Vancouver Island. We have way too much logging happening way too fast, eating into our watersheds, affecting access to water, and certainly in terms of Indigenous reconciliation and conservation, there's a solution to be had there. So we did talk about that, among other issues. I really do want to see the government take up early in the mandate the report of the inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
Did you talk about the challenge he faces now? Fighting climate change on one hand and dealing with the growing alienation in the West, Western separation, Jason Kenney.
You know, Jason Kenney and Western separatists will have to recognize there is no planet called Alberta. They can separate, which I don't think they will, and I don't think there's much appetite for it, but we're all on the same planet. The biosphere is going to go into meltdown. Alberta is not exempt. Alberta's already experienced the Fort McMurray wildfires. Alberta's already experienced the Calgary floods. Alberta is experiencing the rapid retreat of glaciers. You know, we used to say politicians moved at glacial speed. Glaciers are now moving faster than politicians. So we have got to really talk to other premiers who don't grasp this in a way that respects their intelligence, which Jason Kenney's plenty intelligent. So he has to be able to understand the science. The discussions have to be grounded in what does this mean if we continue down the path that says fossil fuels have an economic future. Fossil fuels have no economic future, and they are a threat to our survival. We have to go off fossil fuels. It's not the first time that an economy has had to face this in Canada. Quebec had to face, we're going to shut down asbestos mines. I mean, economically, that was the reason the federal government defended asbestos globally for decades after we knew it was a killer. Fossil fuels are a killer. And it's uncomfortable. We produce fossil fuels. We have people working in the industry, and we love the fossil fuel workers. We want to make sure they have a just transition to good jobs. And right now, they could get a ton of jobs taking the toxic mess that is the abandoned areas of the oil sands and remediating them, which is in the plans. The Alberta government says it will insist on remediation of all those mines. Well, get started. And if federal money is still going to the fossil fuel industry, make sure it's only going to that. Remediating sites, restoring them if it can be done, so that First Nations can occupy their territories and have access to hunting and fishing and traditional activities that are promised under treaty rights but have been ignored as the oil sands have been exploited.
Madame, je suis juste vérifier. Vous dites que la condition au vote de confiance, c'est qu'il y ait des nouvelles cibles pour 2030 ou 2050? Juste
2050, le Premier ministre a accepté le but de devenir carbone neutre en 2050. Mais en 2030, notre cible, c'est pour une augmentation énorme de gaz à effet de serre, et ce n'est pas acceptable. On doit réduire la cible, on doit augmenter l'ambition pour la cible de 2030. Et j'ai parlé avec le Premier ministre aussi de le nouveau projet de loi Nouvelle-Écosse, et dans le projet de loi climatique de Nouvelle-Écosse, la province a accepté une cible de réduction de 53% par 2030. C'est dans le ballpark aussi de partir vers avec notre cible de 60%. So if we're looking at reductions that are consistent with global scientific advice, I think it's interesting that Nova Scotia's legislation calls for 53% reductions in greenhouse gases by 2030. We're still operating under Stephen Harper's target, 30% reductions. The 30% target, which the Liberals are not on track to meet, gets erroneously referred to as the Paris target. It's inconsistent with our Paris goals. We have to actually have a target for this country that doesn't put us in where we are now, a race for last place among industrialized countries.
Donc, vous voulez 60% ou 53%?
Pour moi, le Parti vert, nous avons accepté la cible de 60%. Mais la province de Nouvelle-Écosse a accepté 53%. 53%, c'est absolument meilleur que
Mais
30%.
vous voudriez quoi de la part de M. Trudeau?
Je pense que c'est pour lui et son ministre de l'Environnement
Est-ce qu'il
et
y a
le
un seuil
cabinet.
minimum?
C'est pour trouver un cible qui était fidèle avec l'avis de GIEC. Et c'est une question d'interprétation parce que GIEC a dit que pour le monde entier, on doit réduire par 45% en 2030, global, mondial, 50%. Pour nous, comme Verts, nous pensons que le niveau pour Canada, à cause de notre situation, maintenant nous sommes 17% plus haut qu'en 2000. Our levels are, but the English with the numbers. We are now 17% higher than our 1990 levels. Had we achieved Kyoto, which we would have achieved if we'd stuck with Paul Martin's plan and his government hadn't followed, that's another matter. If we had achieved Kyoto, we'd be 6% below 1990 levels. We are now 17% above 1990
It's
levels.
just that the Liberals probably won't take your 60% target of the Green Party. So what is your minimum? Because you're saying one of the conditions to support
Yes.
this government is a better target. So what's your minimum bottom line that you
Not
want to
just
see?
better target, a target consistent with global scientific advice to hold to 1.5 degrees Celsius and no more. The IPCC advice is globally 45%. We believe our fair share is 60%. But there are many ways of fleshing this out, which is, for instance, if they said we can go to 45% less here in Canada, and I'm just thinking out loud, which is always a mistake, we go to 45% less in Canada, but we're going to offset by restoring the planet's mangrove forests. So the carbon we're not reducing in Canada, we are going to be getting offsets by assisting developing countries.
So is it fair to say 45% is your bottom line?
I'd rather say consistent with the IPCC, because if you take the target out separately from the package, you could easily be blowing through 1.5 to where we currently are. We're blowing through 1.5 with our current target, going to 3 or 4 or 5 degrees Celsius. What matters is that it's grounded in science. So if there was a scientific panel of advisors in Canada that said, yeah, you could probably do 45% if you did this plus. I don't want to pick a target absent from the package. Our target is 60% reductions below 2005 levels by 2030. That's the ballpark. The province of Nova Scotia said 53%. I'm not attacking them for saying 53%. It's the toughest target of any province in Canada. So it's a question of what's the package, what's the science. It's not about politics, it's about science.
As you said, of this parliament, and the last leader to meet with the Prime Minister, do you think he's actually going to listen to you guys?
No, I would, but I haven't introduced Joanne Roberts lately. My interim leader was with us in the meeting. I would say he was listening.
I think he was listening.
Yeah.
I
So,
mean, he knows where his boundaries are.
I mean, I was very clear with him. This is about whether Ella Grace and Hadrian and Xavier are going to have a livable world by the time they're adults. This is not impersonal. This is real, it's personal, and it's a question of moral courage. And I can't believe that he's been Prime Minister as long as he has and kept Harper's target, much less could I have ever believed he was going to buy a pipeline to make sure he got it built. But to waste $13 billion of public funds on a pipeline that blows through our climate commitments, it's unspeakable. But I do think he listens.
How did he react when you brought up his kids?
He's very aware. I think he's very aware that this is personal. And I was counting on that in 2015 when he went to Paris. I thought Canada was back. I was wrong.
What told you he was aware? Like, was it something in his face? Was it?
No, it's just I'm an optimist. I have to hope that people are listening. In this case, I think he was listening. And we'll see.
But what makes you think he's listening more now than in 4 years? He hasn't changed the target in
He
4
was,
years.
no, I know. That's exactly right.
So in what way did he look like he was listening more?
There was no way in which one could say he was listening more. He was listening. We've run out of time. If there's, no, I mean, I don't mean here. What I'm saying is, in terms of climate targets, between then and now, sorry, okay, so what's different from 2015 to now? We're that much closer to the point of no return. That's what I meant. Thank you. And now, if you'd like to be out of time, we can be out of time. I've got all the time in the world. My deputy leader is now the interim leader, so I can just take my time. Thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to Jenica and Paul being here with me so that we can do as much as we can to get progress on the issues that matter. Thank you. Merci.